gentlemen, welcome to episode 214 of the Canadian Football Countdown, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network. We are here to preview week 3 in the CFL of the 2023 season. The whole crew here together this evening. I'm Ryan alongside Mike, Trey, and Adam. We're going to talk about all of the major matchup storylines, the fantasy players to watch, and our betting picks for each of the games this week. We're also live on a variety of different platforms thanks to our presenting sponsor, Game Time TV. So send in your comments, send in your questions in the live chat if you're joining us on our YouTube feed. And that's all thanks to Game Time TV. Learn more at gametimetv.ca. As always, we also want to acknowledge that the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you from Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as from Treaty 4 territory, traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis Nation. Let's bring in the rest of our panel here this evening. Mike, you got your big prize from your big Vegas Golden Knights hockey pool victory, and it's a Seattle Kraken jersey you're wearing here tonight. What's going on here, buddy? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing dead well. The story was I was offered another jersey, which, quite honestly, is not one of my favorites. My understanding was that it was a jersey of the winning team. But anyway, it was just an assorted jersey that they had left. My other option was the Jets Aviator jerseys, the one with the simple kind of that powder blue with the white Jets in handwriting. I'm like, nope, I'd like to take the Kraken jersey. No, I have not switched allegiances, for those wondering. I just wear jerseys for the sake of wearing jerseys. And I know why people might be asking, why are you bringing a hockey jersey to a football podcast? I don't know. I just felt like wearing the jersey.
It's just another horse in the race, right, Mike?
Yep. That's a good way to look at it.
Well, speaking of somebody who knows all about horses in the race, he had a big weekend out in Toronto and came back with a little bit of bling, I believe. The great Trey Colbeck is here. Trey, how was your trip?
Yeah, apparently they try to give these hats out to make the fine people of Toronto feel a little bit more country. When you're pulling off a major 6-lane highway to a racetrack, you're not exactly in the most rural area. But it was a good weekend. Got taken a good football game. Man, Chad Kelly. I mean, I wonder who talked good about him over the offseason. I wonder who had him highlighted and circled. But yeah, it's all good. I'm doing good. I'm surprised Adam. I can surprise Adam could stomach that hat, put it on today, man. Honestly.
Hey, I'm about as optimistic as an 18-point team that just lost a game would be. And apparently in Saskatchewan, that's really optimistic. I don't get it, but Saskatchewan fans said that was a good 18-point loss against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I've never heard of them ever saying such a thing, but I guess they're optimistic in Saskatchewan. So I figured, why not put the away jersey on, put the Rider hat on that I had to replace because the other one's hanging behind Trey right over there, and go from there. So also, just before I forget, I just wanted to wish everybody, all of our First Nations peoples that are watching the game, are watching this, happy Indigenous Peoples Day. It is today.
Awesome. Yes, important to note that as well. Trey, I can't believe you forgot when I was talking about the bling. I was talking about the one thing you've been hoping to get for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah. Here it is.
There's the Argos Grey Cup ring that Bomber fan Trey managed to secure at BMO Field, to taking in the Argos and the Ticats.
They were giving them out to the Ticat fans. I was talking to some Ticat fans that they literally had to say, are you kidding me? And just walk by the people. They were handing them out to everybody, no matter what. So
I should have. Winnipeg fans show no mercy. They took the Riders' free hat and celebrated with it.
I should have taken the Rider hat, but no. I was known as that Bomber guy for about 3 hours, so it was great.
Well behaved, I'm sure. And as always. Big Nickelback concert last night also. Big
I'm
week for Trey.
I'm surprised I have my voice because I did my horse racing podcast this morning too. And yeah, when you're screaming rock star and all that, photo, look at this graph, you got to have the voice ready. The Chad Kroger voice is a tough one to imitate.
It is, and that's for an off-season show, perhaps. Best Nickelback impressions. All right. Let's get into talking about the football here. Of course, we're going to preview Week 3 in the CFL. If you're looking for other additional content from us as well, check out our Discord community at the link in the episode description. We've got live game chats during every game, fantasy updates. All that fun stuff, general CFL chatter amongst us and our listeners. So check that out. If that's something that interests you, you can join for free there. And let's get into our first game of the week. It comes Thursday night, I believe 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. The BC Lions and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, a matchup of two 2-0 football teams going head-to-head at IG Field. Let's go to Adam here first. I believe you're giving us some insight on the Bombers side of things here. Tell us what your major storylines are there.
Well, I think the major storyline in Winnipeg, I think, will be the absence, I guess, because it is now listed as out. Demario Houston will be out for this game, defensive end. He has been a big part of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers' success so far, has had some knockdowns, had some great defensive plays, and will not be in this game for a non-injury related issue. Okay, that's a little bit strange, but nevertheless, that's what is listed up there, and I will go with that and see what's going on. I do not know. It'd be very interesting to know if anybody in Winnipeg knows what's going on with Mr. Houston. The other one that's a big issue over maybe for injury-wise on Winnipeg, and this is maybe more of for Ryan to talk about because of fantasy, Brady Oliveira will be game time decision going into this game here. So you never know. Maybe Johnny Augustine gets in there. Maybe they go and they put in Grant as a running back. Or was it? Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what Winnipeg does here as per options if Brady Oliveira is not ready to go. Had a reasonable game against Saskatchewan, had a 100-yard game in his first game, I know, against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. Another neat little stat that's kind of going to be interesting. Again, don't get that secondary thing is very important for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. BC has probably one of the best receiving cores that isn't the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Essentially, they will be healthy this week. I know Mike will talk about this a little bit more shortly. So be aware when you're watching that about watching for the secondary and the receiving core of the BC Lions. The other part that I just wanted to bring up as a neat little stat, did Willie Jefferson find the fountain of youth sometime lately? He's got 3 pass knockdowns already. He's got 2 sacks. He has been dominant on that line so far. And you got to remember, he's doing this with a rookie end on the other side of him. That he means he usually gets probably double teamed or something because they know he's going to bring the big rush. So give Willie Jefferson all the credit in the world. He has been doing good, actually exceptional so far with the loss of Jackson Jeffcoat, especially on the other side of him. One other little point to bring up. Dalton Schoen, that guy there, just came back. I've said sophomore slump at the beginning of this year. Yeah, he's making me eat my words. 205 yards so far, leading the lead in targets and also in yards. Not in touchdowns yet. That's still Dominic Rhymes' thing. But will look like another dominant game. They're going to have to figure out something. I mean, Saskatchewan did all they could. They put Roland Milligan on him, and yeah, it wasn't doing much. Dalton Schoen was open whenever he wanted to be open pretty much this whole last of the game. I could talk about Zach Collaros and a few other guys, but you know what? There is no real point because we all know that Zach Collaros is going to do what Zach Collaros does. We all know that this team is really great on their receiving core. The only thing, like I said before, again, watch the secondary. If they're going to have success, they can seem to run up the score easily enough as long as they can stop the BC Lions. Speaking of the Lions, Mike, what do you got on the BC Lions?
Yeah, for BC, I have this as a litmus test just to see how good they really are. And to be honest, I think I would extend it both ways. People just say, "Oh, Winnipeg had outscored their problems." 40 plus points and gonna win you a lot of games, no matter what your defense does. But I believe this will be a litmus test for both sides. Both sides will want to say that they are the best team in the CFL, and 3 hours, maybe 3 hours plus of football will decide this. What I really liked about this matchup right off the hop, and Adam already you kind of talked about it, it's the receivers for Winnipeg. I counter with the receivers for BC. I think both these teams will have this ability to stretch the field with their quarterbacks. My only concern for obviously BC is they're adding Lucky Whitehead, but however they are losing. Name escapes me right now. Because of injury.
Dominic Grimes.
Dominic Grimes, thank you. So I don't know if you would consider that to be a soft skill wise, or not. This is also a team that's in the process of having Tion Hatcher on the 6th game. So is wide receiver depth going to be an issue when Colaros can seemingly throw to any of the receivers in any given day to get yards? We'll see. I actually feel that the BC Lions have the better defense as it sits right now. Granted, the teams that they played haven't really put up an offensive challenge all that much. But just granted that BC has a pretty good defense that has been able to keep some teams in check. Granted, Saskatchewan, not Saskatchewan, but Edmonton and then Calgary. So I'm really curious to see how this is going to go. I know we're going to get into the Lions. I did see the line at 6 favoring the Bombers. It was 6.5 at one point. This is by far the game of the week this week, and maybe even the game of the season so far. And we'll see. We'll see if it lives up to the billing.
Yeah, I think this game here is probably your looks like the two top teams in the West right now. I mean, there is no real team that kind of competes either, I think, with Winnipeg or BC. Saskatchewan's arguable. Same thing with Calgary. Maybe they had a bad game in the first outing. But look at one thing, though, that I wanted to bring up quickly and just get a quick little insight from any of you guys if you want to pitch in on this one. Winnipeg, they've given up a lot of points in their first two games, in all honesty. When I take a look at this, I think against Saskatchewan, they were going back and forth until the kick return touchdown from Janarian Grant. Before that, that was a back and forth game, which the Riders were well in. The first game, they ran up the score quite a bit on Hamilton at first, but they let Hamilton kind of run back a little bit into the game. Maybe not that it was like uncomfortable for Bomber fans, but certainly that last game there in the third quarter, halfway through, I'm sure there had to been some Bomber fans kind of getting a little nervous. Just give us your guys, if you want to give a quick thought on the Winnipeg defense, on anything you wanted to talk about there.
I mean, it's bend but don't break, right? And the first game, really, you can't even chalk that one up to the defense. Those offense and special teams giving up 21 points on 3 plays. The defense completely shut Bo down, and he had nothing going in that game. Whereas I was surprised that Trevor Harris and the Riders offense put up as much as they did against the Bombers. But I think I said last year, sloppiest 15-3 football team I've ever seen. I don't know. They might have the run for the money with this year's if things continue on the roller coaster run.
One thing that I will counter with is the injuries on defense for the Blue Bombers that will be on Jackson Jeffcoat. They haven't had one of their corners. Also, his name escapes me. Right now. But yeah, they've also had a lot of injuries defensively. They have Teodric Hansen on the 6th game as a D end. They have Justin Jeffcoat on the 6th game. This will be his second game. They're also missing one of the DBs, Ryan, whose name escapes me right now. On the corner, Winston Rose is another one, and there's a fourth guy way down there that I'm trying to think of. So I don't know, right? It's like Ryan said, this is a prototypical Richie Hall bend but don't break. This is the defense that I think gets the job done when called upon. Am I happy with the defense? No. Am I happy with 2 wins? Absolutely, right? Because that's really what this is about in the grand scheme of things. And I think even good teams have things to work on. But I remember, I think it was last year, maybe I'm pretty sure it was last year. We had this discussion about bomber defense, right? And if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it, right? And it gets the job done. I just want to see what guys do when healthy. And to be fair, Trevor Harris has a history of lighting up the Blue Bombers as well.
Does he?
With those quick outlets, it's impossible to blitz them on a team. The Bomber defense is predicated on trying to get to the quarterback as fast as possible. If Harris takes that away, man on man, that's where you see kind of the weakness. But it's going to be interesting either way, because I think we're really going to see what both teams are made of.
Trey, any thoughts?
All I know is if I see 3 straight hours of this bend not break, I'm bringing my whiteboard to next week's show. I'm sick of it. I'll show you how to coach defense. So, I agree with Mike. It like with the whole if it's working, but my problem is that one game comes in October or November where it doesn't work, right?
Right.
Or you do end up you can only rely on I feel like it's a Madden defense, right? Like it's Madden. No, it really is. You can just look at the team can just throw 1,000 yards on you, but you'll get a pick at the end zone or a fumble or something stupid that can only happen in make-believe video game world, right? So that's kind of what this Bomber team does, and it stresses the hell out of me on Madden, and it stresses the hell out of me in real life. But
I want to see new weekly bonus content in the Discord, Coach's Hour with Trey and the whiteboard.
Man, give me a whiteboard. I can figure any play out, guys.
There we go. Well, let's see if you can figure any fantasy players out as we move on to fantasy players to watch.
We'll discuss it later, but who did really good?
You did really good there. Well done, Trey. Great week for Trey all around. Fantasy players to watch in this game. I'll give you 5 for each game here this evening, and I'll run through them quickly on this one. We talked about a couple key injuries, and Dominic Rhymes for sure out. Brady Oliveira doubtful to play. That leads to some value play opportunities. If Johnny Augustine is the starting running back, he comes in at $5,200 on the official CFL fantasy site. Augustine's looked good in times where he's been given opportunities, and in a league, where a lot of the starting running backs are $10,000+. If you're just looking for a cheap play for a starting running back in what should be a high-scoring game, Johnny Augustine could potentially be a play there. On the BC side of things, a couple of wide receivers I like. I don't want to put Lucky Whitehead in my lineup coming straight back from injury, but I think Alexander Hollins, I'll throw him in here for another week in a row at $11,000. He's averaged 6.5 targets a game through his 2 games so far. Solid production there for him. Price is getting a bit high, but I think with Rhymes out, he could get more of a role. And if you really want to go value play there, Aiden Eberhardt, $5,000 was a standout performer in the preseason, I believe I was reading. And last week put up 7.7 points, a modest total, but not bad when you're paying only $5,000. He'll get to start again with Dominic Rhymes out of the lineup. Taquan Mazzell from the BC side of things at running back. I like that as a potential play also. He's had over 100 yards in one game, 90-something in the other. He's averaging 3 to 4 receptions a game, and that's pretty solid production with no touchdowns yet. So if they can put some points on the board like Saskatchewan did against the Bombers last week, maybe he secures some touchdowns there also. And then the last player to mention, is Dalton Schoen, and Adam touched on him a little bit there. He's pricey. He's as expensive as it gets at $15,000, but he's averaged a massive 10.5 targets a game so far. He has the potential for multiple touchdowns as well, on any given week, really. So he has the potential for a skyrocketing score. It's hard to hit value with those big plays, but if anybody can, I think Dalton Schoen is one of those options. Let's go to everybody's else's fantasy pick in this one. Trey, who are you watching?
God, I gotta take my boy Dalton Schoen. I'll pay that price. In our fantasy league, he was the second highest scorer on the roster by the looks of it, right? So why he only got lost out to another guy that I'm gonna obviously take in my team by a couple points. I can't see Dalton Schoen. Yeah. And yes, FM fan, it fits good. It only fits in my pinky though. It is kind of small. I don't know. The bomber ones can fit at least on my ring one, but this one's a pinky ring, I guess. They get to have small hands in Toronto. I don't know. Is that a thing?
I don't know.
So people in the stand said they couldn't understand me because I spoke to Manitoban. So, there must be some differences.
Interesting.
Anyway, that's a different game.
Adam, what about you? What's your fantasy player to watch in this one?
I don't know if I should be keeping my cards tight right against the chest because, me and Ryan are going on the head-to-head this week over in the Discord fantasy league.
Look, it doesn't matter, Adam. The result will flip 5 times as the stats get corrected. So you'll win.
Are you with results?
I'll win half the time. We'll split it down the middle and call it a tie. I don't know.
That's about it. Kiss the cousin. Way you go. Anyways, wait, no, that's Saskatchewan. I'll just leave that out. Well, anyways, we'll move on here. I'm looking over at. I wanted to take TJ Mizzle at first this week, just because he's been giving me lots of good points for not a whole lot of money. But then I remembered, he's got to also face Willie Jefferson, which doesn't usually end well. So I'm going to probably change that one. However, I'm going to pull off the Trey Colbeck this week, and I will go Dalton Schoen because the guy's been lighting it up. I mean, it concerns me a little bit with the BC defense, especially their secondary. But honestly, he can find his way open. He's he's almost majestic in how he can find his way open in the middle of a field. When I watched him last week. So, yeah, as crazy as it sounds, I'm going Dalton Schoen this week.
All right, so 3 of us have mentioned Dalton Schoen so far. Mike, you going to continue the trend, or who's your fantasy player to watch between Winnipeg and BC?
My fantasy player to watch is the Bombers' second leading receiver from last week. I want to see if he can follow it up. Drew Wolotarski. If everybody seems to think that Dalton Schoen is going to go deep, I expected a lot of underneath short routes for a guy like Drew Wolotarski. Might be a solid play. Just a quick couple notes too. I don't know if you guys picked it up on the depth chart. The Bombers only dressed 44 players on the depth chart today. They do have an open roster spot, which leads me to believe that it is possible that Greg McRae joins the roster as number 45. Also something to keep in mind. And if you also look at the depth chart as well, it is Jake Thomas listed as number 65, which makes me go, So he is also a possibility to dress as a backup offensive lineman. So some potential jumbo packages. We saw that last week. So historically, though, guys, to be honest, outside of Zach Polaros, and maybe Birdie Oliveira, I've kind of stayed away from the Bomber receivers in fantasy just because we don't know who seems to get the ball, right? You can't, outside of Dalton Schoen, who's the safe pick to maybe get 100 yards a week, who is that second guy that typically touches 100? It varies by the week. One week it could be Drew Wolotarski, next week it could be Rasheed Bailey, next week it could be Nick Dempsey, right? So it's an embarrassment of riches, but also trouble in the fantasy department.
Exactly. And I agree. I agree completely on that one. All right, let's get into our betting picks for this one. What you got for us here, Trey?
Okay, real quick, we got to do a recap. So last week, myself and Adam went 4-0 against the picking against the spread, led to some big money, which we'll talk about. Ryan went 3-1, and Mike went 2-2. So our season totals, me and Ryan are tied at 6-2 overall. Adam is 5-3. Mike sits at 2-2 as he missed out week one. Over and unders again. Me and Adam had solid weeks, 3-1. Where Ryan went 2-2, and Mike maybe should stick to his hockey and not over under. He went 0-4, which is okay. He's still learning. So again, our season totals on that is I'm 6-2, Adam's 504-4, Ryan's 3-5, and Mike's 0-4. So if you follow along and do the betting, $5 each game, and a $5 parlay on the spreads, and same thing with the over-unders, and then a parlay, $50 each week. If you followed along, you would have made $78.41 with me, and that's like already subtracted the 50. It would have been 130 something. So your net $78.41. If you followed Adam, your net would be $49.90. If you followed Ryan, you would be in the hole $14.45. And if you followed Mike last week, you'd be negative $30.99. So you're making money with me and Adam. The other two, stick to ant farms, I guess, boys. I don't know. So, but this one, like Mike alluded to earlier, -6 Winnipeg, the home favorite, and an over/under of 48.5. So, Mr. Manitoba betting expert here. This one's tough. This is a big spread. I don't like it, but I will take Winnipeg -6. I have learned not to bet against Winnipeg. Last year, I was hard on them, and that's what screwed me up early in the season. So I will take Winnipeg -6. I know BC's talented, but I think it will be a full touchdown. 48.5, I'll take the over because, BC, they got 22 last week. They got, another big score. I think it was 25 the first week. If you add that to 30-some, the Bombers would have to win by 32. We're looking good, boys. So, yeah, I'm taking -6 and the over. Ryan, let's go with you.
I'm going to take the exact same thing on both of these, and this is not me just trying to, ride Trey's coattails here. Last season, we had this big matchup between the top two teams in the West, BC and Winnipeg, and suddenly Winnipeg kind of jumped out to a pretty big lead, and I think won that one pretty handily. I do like a lot of what I've seen from BC, but I like the Bombers at home more and enough to cover the spread here, although they'll probably do something wacky to ruin that. But this one, I feel confident about the over just because these are two high-powered offenses that can put points on the board in bunches.
Let's move on to Adam here. What do you think?
Yeah, I hate to be the guy that does all the same as you guys as well, but no, I'm going to go with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers this week. The last two games that the Bombers and the Lions have played are 3 games here, other than the one where everybody was sitting because, everybody just sat because it was the end of the season and nobody cared, except for Nathan Rourke, who came back in that game for some reason. Anyways, the other games, Winnipeg's blowing BC out in the first half quite handedly. Even in the playoff game, it felt like Winnipeg was just going to get off to a roll and just carry this game on. It became a gun show for a little while, and I'm definitely going to want to take the over because of that. I just don't know. Vernon Adams had 2 good games in a row. Bad Vernon's about to come out, I think. No, go with Winnipeg in the over.
Winnipeg in the over. Mikey, what do you got, buddy?
One sentence. I don't want to repeat myself for reasons that have already been discussed.
Oh, so yeah, you're going to take the same? Okay. Yeah, confused me for a second. Yeah, okay. Sounds good. So yeah, we all took -6.5 Winnipeg, and we took the over. That's fine. So you guys can't catch up to me if I'm wrong. So I'll like that.
More like if we're going down, we're taking you with us. I think is one of Mike's
plans. Now I'm worried. Now I'm picking the same as you 3 Yahoos. I don't know if that's a good choice, but I think that's pretty solid.
Hey, I'm right there with you against the spread. All right, let's get into our next game here of the week. It's the Friday night matchup. The Montreal Alouettes coming off the bye week in Hamilton for the Ticats home opener. Friday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Let's go to you first on this one, Mike. I believe you're telling us all about the Ticats here, correct?
Yep. The tie test, the biggest thing for me is the Matthew Schultz. I don't know if you want to call it era. Matthew Schultz starting campaign. Matthew Schultz's
Hall of Fame campaign?
Sorry?
Hall of Fame campaign?
I don't know. But one would suspect that Matthew Schultz might be a little bit angry with his team's management having to figure out what he needs to do to get a legitimate start at number one. Well, this is a pretty darn good start, if you ask me. No, so what happened was last week they lost to Toronto in a game that, I don't know, I reckon it to someone going ATVing and getting stuck in the mud and going in a lot of water and getting stuck in the mud and not being able to gain any traction to get out. That is my summation of what happened to Hamilton. Although we did see a lot of what I thought ailed them against Winnipeg, penalties. The one thing that I am thankful for as a Bomber fan relative to Hamilton is we're able to keep the penalties in check so far. The amount of free yards that Hamilton seems to be giving out, like Christmas presents sometimes, I just don't understand. It's a football team that isn't really playing like a football team at times. When you're taking selfish penalties, such as what we saw on a couple of the drives, which absolutely turned the game, which is what you would expect. Now, keep in mind, I'm not talking about the pass interference where you go hand in hand with the guy and pull him down at the last minute. I'm talking about the roughing the passer, those 15-yard penalties that are avoidable. Clean it up. They have a lot to clean up. Despite Matthew Schultz being in the game as the starter, and Ryan, I think you alluded to this after the game, and I could not agree more. The best quarterback on the roster finally gets his chance to play. I have long felt that if I had to start a team from scratch, I certainly would consider Matthew Schultz among the options for a quarterback, not necessarily playing, but a spot on my roster in the right situation. So it is the home opener. I can imagine a whole bunch of apprehension, potentially from Hamilton's side of things. Already 0-2, but 0-3 in a Grey Cup year, let's just say if the temperature wasn't warm enough outside, it could potentially get a whole lot warmer after this game. That's kind of a couple of the things that I'm watching for. Clean up the penalties.
Can I make a quick point? I just want to make a quick point because I talked to a lot of Hamilton fans. I was surprised none of them. This was a small sample size, like 5 or 6 guys. They all love Coach O still, and there was no. The fan base anyway. My sense was he's not in hot water. Now, was from the front office might be completely different. And I'm not saying that's what you were saying, but like you just said, the temperature might get hotter in Hamilton. I was surprised for a team who's on the verge of going 0-3. The fan base seemed pretty okay with their head coach. That's all I was saying.
I think it's because everybody's got their eyes pointed at offensive coordinator Tommy Condell as the first guy that's got to go.
Right.
That's fair too. I was just thinking though, like I thought, me personally, knowing the head coach was also the president and GM, where my job is safe. Like I would be maybe thinking he needs to go. Like but I'm surprised.
I should clarify that. My temperature being cranked up, I'm not advocating for somebody to be fired. It's just you can't handle loss after loss after loss after loss, especially if, they're avoidable type of things for the most part that you can clean up. And I hate to say this, but they need better out of their quarterback. I know it is Captain Obvious, and there's really going to be a controversy or a lot thereof if Schultz comes in and throws for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns. But again, you win the game. That's all that really matters, right? And yeah, I personally, I believe Orlando Steinauer will be safe for the season regardless what happens. It's just not a good look with the team hosting the Grey Cup going 0-3.
Yeah, I've heard this story before. I just can't think of which team off the top of my head. Anyways,
It's actually, I think, might be the team that is on the top of your head.
Fair enough. Anyways,
For the audio listeners, he's wearing a Riders hat.
Yeah, kind of. Anyways, nevertheless, Hamilton's got their problems, but the other team they're playing this week, they've got problems too. It's not like the Montreal Alouettes are the best and most clean team in the East right now. Maybe they're not as bad as some of the others, but they did win their first game. I mean, it was against Ottawa, but you got to look at that game pretty carefully there. Ottawa has a pretty good defense overall. It's just that they got to play a lot because most times the offense is off the field because they probably had a 2-and-out. That being said, they got 6 sacks on Cody Fajardo in the first game. If Montreal's going to have any success whatsoever, they have got to clean up the sack situation. This was an issue for Cody Fajardo in Saskatchewan. It's going to be another issue this year. It almost looks like, yes, Jason Moss has said to us, this will not continue. Let's see it, Jason. Then we'll talk. The other part on this is, though, it's not just on Cody Fajardo to try to avoid the sack. It's got to be a little bit on your receiving core to try to get a little bit more open, try to make a play or two to try to get the ball out and open quickly. Austin Mack had a great game for his first game in. I think it was 90-plus yards he had a touchdown reception, looked really good for his first game in the CFL, and he's getting looked at. Anybody else can name a receiver in Montreal that really is going to be a game changer right now? I mean, don't get me wrong. They've got a few pieces in there. And again, they've got a good return system. But with Greg Ellingson out, I don't feel comfortable yet in the Montreal receiving core. I think they really need some help there. And also, they need some work on the running back situation. Yes, William Stanback is back. Great. But is he still maybe a little bit tentative? I don't know. And I don't want to say that because he has been a dominant receiver or running back in this league for a very long time. Jesjuan Antry took a lot of yards last time, just about as many, I think, as William Stanback. So it'll be very interesting to see if Jason Moss starts using his running backs. Sometimes he has a tradition of deciding, I'm just going to throw the football and say the heck with the receiving or with running game. But let's hope in Montreal he doesn't do that, because that really takes a lot of pressure off of your offensive line and maybe off of getting Cody Fajardo looking up at the Montreal landscape, because that doesn't help anybody when he's looking up at the stars in Montreal at night, or in this case, in Hamilton. Nevertheless, I think this game will be very interesting to see. And one other piece, Seontae Evans, he was an interception leader early in the season. He's gotten 2 already. Looks very promising right now. We'll see what he does, especially against maybe a more rookie quarterback in Matthew Schultz, to see if he can confuse him and do something to continue his ball hawkish ways. Ryan, what other players are we looking at here for fantasy? What have you got on that side of things?
Yeah, for sure. I like both quarterbacks in this game this week for kind of similar but different reasons. I mean, Cody Fajardo is at $14,000. I don't think a lot of people are looking at Fajardo in fantasy this week. I think there's other quarterbacks and other matchups that people may have more of an eye on. Just 0.8% of people have selected him so far, according to the CFL fantasy site. And I think that's underselling how many points he could bring you this week. I mean, he was the 3rd highest scoring quarterback in week number 1. He's a mobile quarterback. He scored a rushing touchdown in week 1. And he plays against a Hamilton defense that has just been downright terrible all season. And, if Fajardo's going to run the ball in, if they get close to the goal line, and they're getting close to there because either the offense is moving or Hamilton's defense is taking those penalties to get them there. Yeah, I like Fajardo as a quarterback option this week. And I also like his opponent, Matthew Schultz, for the value play at $7,300. I mean, a starting QB for $7,300, take that if it means you can fit other pieces you want in your lineup. He went 13 of 14 last week for a touchdown when he filled in the game. Some of that was probably garbage time for sure, but Schultz is a mobile quarterback as well. I think with some of their offensive line problems, he's going to need to be a bit more mobile, which should lead to some additional rushing yardage and points there for him. So I like both quarterbacks in this game as well. I like a couple of Alouettes wide receivers. You touched on Austin Mack. He was the Owls' top receiver in week number 1, and yet he's still only 4,900, which is pretty low for a starting receiver in CFL fantasy. I think, like you said, they're still trying to find their guy to establish himself as the number 1, and if he can continue and produce even half of what he did last time out, it would be a good play. I like Kion Julian Grant still as well. Modest performance in week 1, I think, was around 8 points there. But he did have a big catch. Seems like Fajardo likes to throw that deep ball, so if you can find him on another big one, he had a couple big plays last year, and I think he can still be one of the top Alouettes wide receivers. And finally, your 5th fantasy player to watch in this game. I cannot believe I'm putting a Ticats running back on the list. But I think James Butler, even though he's 15,000, is actually starting to really become a strong fantasy option. He's averaged just shy of 20 points in his 2 games so far, despite the offense not being good. What is it going to look like if they do start being able to produce a little bit more here? 7 receptions last week as well for a running back, which is insane. And I think Matthew Schultz could lean on him to take a little bit of the pressure off there. So, yeah, I like a lot of the fantasy options in this matchup between these 2 teams here. Let's go back to you here, Adam. What are you looking at as your fantasy player to watch?
Well, I'm debating which running back to use in Montreal because I think they could run for a lot of yards this game against a Hamilton defensive line that, hasn't been at all very good. But I don't know which one to choose yet, if it'll be Antwi or if it'll be William Stanback. I'd like to take Fajardo. I can't afford him. And I think there's a mobile quarterback that just buys you yards all the time and points that is cheaper and probably a better pick this week. So I'm going to probably try to take one of the running backs from Montreal. And the other one I'm going to take is Austin Mack. I'm going to see what he does. He had a good game in the first one. I'm going to try him in the second one here and see what he can do against a Hamilton defense again. That's been a little bit suspect to start the season. So, Mike, who do you got for fantasy picks this week?
Yeah, I like Austin Matt. Spoiler alert, he's going to be in our fantasy league in my starting lineup this week. I still have a couple of other options that I'm considering. I like both quarterbacks. One day I also like, and this might be an absolute long shot, but based on what I saw at the end of last week's game, I like Tyler Ternowski for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. He seems to have that connection with Matthew Schultz, and it's interesting, right? Because those 2 guys are kind of fringe guys, starters / backup, practice with one another. I want to see if that connection picks up early on. Another guy, if you want a more stable option, if we'll call it that. I'm sorry, Adam, I have to bring this up. Duke Williams, 100+ yards last week. But yeah, I like Ternowski if you're looking for a really, really, really under the radar guy. If you want to load up with heavy, better players with higher monetary value, Ternowski might come in at a really cheap option and give you 50-something yards, which is acceptable, and then potentially is able to do stuff down near the goal line. I don't know. That might be a reach, but that was the guy that I was considering adding to my roster this week.
Yeah, Ternowski is at $5,800. Did put up a touchdown and 14 points last week. So if you can get something similar for that, you're taking that to the bank for sure. Trey, what about you? Who are you looking at for a fantasy pick in this one?
Not a single damn person, boys. On to the next game.
All right, fair enough. There's no requirement. Take anybody from a specific game. Let's talk betting picks.
Yeah, a lot of talk here. Hamilton's the home favorite, -2.5. kind of weird to think about. The 1-0 team is the underdog against the 0-2 team. That's where I'm going to take the Alouettes plus 2.5 here, boys. I think I'm sorry, FM fan. I don't buy what you're selling. Maybe Schultz is the answer, but there's a lot of other things wrong with this team other than the quarterback play. And the over-under is 44. I'm going to go under, so I'm taking Montreal and the under. Adam, let's start with you.
Oh, I haven't picked against Ray for a long time, and I think finally I might just do that. I think that the Hamilton Tiger Cats are going to have a reasonable game. I don't know if they're going to quite they should win this one here. It's their home game. They should be excited about it. They don't have the quarterback. I think they were expecting to wear number 19 going into this game, but hey, a quick number 5 in Matthew Schultz probably will be okay as well. Duke Williams is going to probably go and break my heart. Just watch him do it again by missing a big catch, which will cost me the game or something. But I'm going to go with Hamilton in this one. I think I'll go in the over. No, I'll go under on this one here. But yeah, let me go with the Ticats this week, and we'll see what happens, I guess, next week. I'm going to take I think Matthew Schultz will have a pretty good game. So, FM fan, they better have a good second half. That's all I can say.
I love how you just have the hats at the ready, and Adam switches to the Ticats hat as he says that.
Oski wee wee, boys. Mike, who do you got? Mike, who do you got?
Yeah, I like Montreal, and I like the under in this one. Two quarterbacks. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to get the traction in one, but everybody seems to think. If it is a run-heavy game, I expect it to be a battle in the trenches, not too many possessions and not too many points. I'm thinking a 17, 13, 19, 13 kind of thing.
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but Mike and I have the same 2 picks to lead off the week. Brian, what do you got, buddy?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Alouettes on this one as well. They tempted me when they said Matt Schultz was going to be the starter to take Hamilton, but like you said, Trey, there's too many problems, and I'm probably honestly not going to pick the Ticats unless the spread is crazy until they fix the discipline issues as a big thing, first of all. So I got to take Montreal in on this one. And you know what? It worked for me last week. With that Toronto game, nobody trusted me on the over-under. I know my track record hasn't been there, but give me the over on this game. And it's because, it's at 44. That's a low total. 23-22 gets it done. The Ticats have, on average, given up like 37 points a game. So if they, continue that trend, it's all they got to do is score a touchdown themselves to hit it. So I will take the over just barely.
Oh, yeah. That half a point on Sunday was brutal to watch, boys. Brutal.
I told you guys all along.
Going to happen again, that half a point, but in the
Very
right
well. Very well. But anyway.
All right, on to our next game. Here we've got the Saturday game between the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Calgary Stampeders in Calgary. 7 p.m. Eastern time, I believe, is the start of this one. Let's go to you here first, Adam. You're wearing on the Riders colors, but I think you're going to tell us the major storylines here for Calgary.
Yeah, Mike wanted to talk about the Roughriders, so I thought, why not let Mike talk about the Roughriders? I'm going to talk about the Stamps. First things first, Malik Henry. He had a little bit of a chest injury of some sort. Kind of a weird way to state it. I mean, ribs or is it someone else? But anyways, was out for one practice fully now. I would expect probably Malik Henry to play this game. I don't see how Malik Henry doesn't. I think the biggest storyline in this game is going to be the upstart Saskatchewan Roughrider receiving core versus the Calgary secondary. Jonathan Moxey has kind of tried to hold on to this secondary, try to keep it together, but just hasn't quite looked right yet in Calgary. I'm not sure if that's the biggest of issue, but nevertheless, it'll be very interesting to see what Calgary does to try to contain some of these young upstart Roughrider receivers like Tevin Jones, Sean Bain Jr., and of course, the Sam Emilus, who, by the way, I don't recommend picking at the last second, going and scratching him and picking Alexander Hollins instead. Not speaking from experience, am I? Anyways, nevertheless, the other thing also to keep an eye on this one here would be Dedrick Mills. It's going to be interesting to see how much yardage the Roughriders let out in running yards. So far, they've done a pretty good job of containing running backs like Brady Oliveira, and in their first game, they did a pretty fair job of also containing Kevin Brown. Probably two of the better running backs in the league. That being said, they've got a real struggle here because Calgary really likes to run that ball. And I'm thinking that Calgary is going to try to really push it down the Roughriders' throat as this game goes along. The storylines, well, there's one in Saskatchewan that's also been talked about quite a bit. It has been Jamal Morrow and Frankie Hickson not being able to run the ball very much. But I'll let Mike talk more about that one there. Mike?
Yeah, it sounds like Frankie Hickson not going to be in. The Riders are making sorry here, I'll just jump in quickly. Richard was asking what jersey I was wearing. It's just Seattle Kraken blue jersey there. I'll tilt my camera down. There you go. Seems like that's quite the hit tonight. Speaking of hit, it was unfortunately one of the first plays of the game, but not Frankie Hickson out of the game. One of the things that I'm interested to see, they have some not too good with names, so my apologies to Adam. Maybe you can help me out with this. There seems to be some offensive line adjustments that are coming for the Riders, which is going to be interesting because I feel like that's maybe perhaps where they were lacking last week and maybe a little bit the week before, although they got away with the 10 winning in Edmonton. More options on the offensive line. So I like that from a standpoint. MLS, to me, 3 touchdowns. Might be getting into my fantasy player to watch, but how does he follow it up? Because I remember he took a lot of heat last year for, being this high-end, draft pick and very little performance. So finally he has this breakout game. How does he respond? To be honest, so my kind of mirror expectations is still on Trevor Harris. It's amazing what confidence and offense can get when they have a quarterback who seems to have commanded a huddle the way Trevor Harris does. Everybody seems to be playing a little bit, 2 or 3 inches taller, right? And making big plays. I really believe that what happened last week against Winnipeg was just the start for this Rider offense. If they can find a little bit more defensive stability, and then just the injuries. Like, we're into week number 3, and that guy's out, and this guy's out, and that guy's out. Defensively, like, at some point you're going to have to be, bringing guys from the practice roster and, signing them to play on pretty quickly at the rate. But the injuries are going. But again, they've shown that this is not, at least from what I've seen, and Adam, you can maybe fill in on this, but through 2 games, this isn't the Saskatchewan Roughriders of last year. This is a team that's much further along in their progression. Are they where they want to be? Absolutely not. But they stuck with the league's number 1 team amongst some prognosticators through 2.5 quarters, and had a kick return or a punt return that was 99.5 times out of 100 going to be stopped 5 yards in or for a loss at that point. So it's just it's interesting, right? And the way the Riders are currently constructed, I see them as a playoff team. Assuming that things continue to be on that trajectory. If I can, too, I'd like to give some props to the Saskatchewan offensive coordinator. Last year, that was a sore spot amongst the Riders and their fans about, maybe oversimplicity, not doing a lot to kind of help your team. To me, we're starting to see more balance, whether that's, hits in moral, and just smarter plays protecting the football offensively. And you know what? That defense is going to come along, especially with that goal line stop, against Edmonton. You could say, it's Edmonton, but still, you stop them 3 times on the 1-yard line, end up winning that game. So the Riders are vastly improved, and spoiler alert to my pick already, I expect them to have a lot of success this week.
Yeah, I just want to quickly run through just the injury report for the Roughriders, and I'm going to do this in auction mode because we need to do this really quick. Vedvik, Marshall, Moncrief, Brown, Daly, Corte Moore, Awachi, Frankie Hickson, Anthony Lanier, Jawan Breskison, DeMarcus Christmas, Dulkey, Roland Milligan Jr., and Rodney Clemens, and probably a few more that just aren't even on this list that are still in the 6-game injured list. That's a lot of injuries for the Saskatchewan Roughriders this season. Big one that, you were talking about earlier, Mike, about the offensive lines. Colin Kelly will be in this week. He's replacing, I believe it's Brandon Council over on the one side. And on the other side, Gerald Hawkins was taken off of the injured, off the suspended list. He will be replacing, I believe it is, my brain just went dead. Nevertheless, he's on the other end for the Roughriders. I don't know. There's a lot of injuries on this team. That's all I can say on this. But you know what? With injuries, that makes new players come above and makes better, newer receivers maybe for that case because they've had so many injuries in receiver. Ryan, I think you might be talking about some of them new receivers. What do you think?
Yeah, for your 5 fantasy players to watch in this game, we're going to look all at the wide receiver position across the board here. We've got 3 of them for Saskatchewan. Tevin Jones, 9,600 in fantasy. Samuel Emilus, 7,100. Sean Bain Jr., $10,000. Take your pick. Those 3 were money last week, whichever one of them you put in. In terms of which ones I like more, I really liked the Tevin Jones 14 targets last week. 9 catches. First of all, I prefer a guy with a lot of targets over a lot of touchdowns. Emilus, 3 touchdowns last week, put up a massive total. He's not going to replicate that. You would have to imagine week after week. But if a guy's getting, 10 plus targets a game, then he can make a couple of touchdowns or make a couple of big plays and rack up the yardage and the point totals there. So I think I like the plays of Tevin Jones and Sean Bain a little bit more. Bain's been averaging 8 targets a game. Seems like he's a featured piece of the offense. Tevin Jones, like I said, you would have to imagine gets another start here going forward after the way he played last week. But Emilus is the cheaper option at 7,100. Even if he's not scoring 3 touchdowns, week 1 he had a big catch there for I think 30 or 40 yards in that one. Which was nice to see as well. So it seems like maybe him and Trevor Harris have a connection and he's cheap. So really, I think you couldn't go wrong with any of these options potentially. Emilus, I think, has more touchdown potential here, but I like the targets that the other 2 had. So it depends kind of what you can all fit in your roster there. If you want to take a Calgary wide receiver, I'm sticking with Trey Odom's Dukes as a recommendation here for the 3rd week in a row. He's still only $6,800, and much like Sean Bain, he's averaging 8 targets a game and seems to still be a value play for them. Kind of their number 3 guy behind Malik Henry and Reggie Bagleton. And speaking of Bagleton, he's expensive, $14,200. But last week, I feel like we finally saw vintage Reggie Bagleton that we were missing at times last season. He's averaging 10.5 targets a game, tied with Dalton Schoen at 21 targets on the season. And last week, 8 catches for 141 yards. You can kind of interchange him and Malik Henry a little bit. Either one, I think, could have the big game. But, if Jake Mayer wants to keep that high completion percentage up, put the ball in Bagleton's hands and let him make some plays happen there. So Yeah, I like a lot of the receivers in this game, fantasy-wise. Mike, let's go to you first. I think you kind of teased it a little bit. Was it Sam Emelis?
Yeah, it was. And for Calgary, my pick is Dedrick Mills. He had a 100-yard game quietly, most of which in the second half. When things aren't necessarily working on the pass game, look for Calgary to continue to run the ball and maybe wear down that Saskatchewan defense a little bit, which is a little bit light on the depth end of things. Try to really work it with ground and pound. Ironically enough, Saskatchewan, I feel, would be served playing the same way. Having Trevor Harris handle the ball for a long time, 6-7 minute drives to keep that Rider defense a little bit less exposed at times. This will be a great game nonetheless. I'm also tempted maybe to run the Calgary defense, although that might be a bit of a risky play given some of the playmakers that the Riders have. So I'm not, I in our Discord lead, I'm not even sure right now which defense I'm gonna run out. For me, more of it now that I think about this, as I'm kind of talking about it, I think I'd stay away from both defenses in this game. But no, I do like Dedrick Mills and I do like Emelis for the Riders and maybe two of those other receivers that Ryan was mentioning.
Trey, what about you? Anybody in this game catch your eye?
Yeah, I got Dedrick Mills and I can never say this guy's name. Who could have won? Yeah, sure. Throw him in there. I can never say it. And yes, Rich, I'm always on the clock, so I am multitasking. Horse racing never sleeps, boys. So I gotta,
You're a man of many talents there, Trey. Adam, what about you for fantasy picking this one?
Well, there's two guys I'm looking at. One is if you want a real sleeper pick and you want to just try something to see if it works because, Saskatchewan seems convinced to build the new Canadian Air Force all the time. Why not take a look at Mitchell Picton? Eventually he's going to play and he's going to have one big game and he's going to break out. So I'm going to throw Mitchell Picton's name in there. He has only had one target this year. Honestly, I'd be very tempted to not pick him, but hey, if you want one of those sleeper picks and one that could possibly just blow up and go hard, Mitchell Picton's probably the one. But in mine, I'm going to take Tevin Jones. He had a pile of looks every time they were throwing the ball towards Tevin Jones. He'd either make the catch, make a few yards, or just he would always be able to control the ball. So I like him for Saskatchewan. For Calgary, I really do like Luther Conavanu. Looks like he's now on the healthy side of things. He wasn't listed in any injury report. And Calgary needs him to be healthy because they're going to need to get some big yards in this game. The other one also is Dedrick Mills. I think the three guys have said him already. If Calgary's going to have success, it's always through their ground game, and they're going to have to do the same thing here against Saskatchewan, which might be a challenge, but hey, why not give it a try?
And as Richard in the YouTube chat says, Adam always swinging for the fences. I like it. Speaking of swinging for the fences, perhaps let's go over to our betting picks here, Trey.
Yeah, I think you might. I don't know. Someone might have to come over and check on me after this one because I'm actually surprisingly going to take my at +3.5, the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And for the main fact, this team, I believe, could have easily been 2-0 if it wasn't for I'm not going to say controversial, but a very interestingly handled punt return, which we all know was amazing. But if there wasn't this magical challenge of holding that now we apparently have in the league, Saskatchewan was right there. I think that deflated them pretty hard. Not only they think they got the stop to find, or they got the lucky holding to come back, then they're told, oh no, just kidding, you didn't. You guys suck at tackling. So, that's basically, I think the game went the other way. I think Saskatchewan could easily be 2-0. So you're going to give me them 3.5 points? Lock it up. Over under 45.5. I will take the over on that one. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I didn't think preseason that I'd be making this pick in week 3, but I'm going to agree with you and take the Saskatchewan Roughriders over the Calgary Stampeders. The Riders have performed a lot better than what I expected from them this year, and Calgary really just hasn't amazed me so far. To their credit, they got the win against Ottawa. Ottawa's got a bunch of problems of their own, and they didn't look very good against BC. So I like the Riders. Not expecting Trevor Harris to light it up quite as much as he did last time around. And for that reason, I'm going to take the under, I think, on this one as well. I feel like every time Calgary and Saskatchewan play each other, it's a low-scoring affair. I think the last couple of years we've seen a number of games that are 19-17 and something in that category there, and I don't see this being much different. So yeah, I'll take the under, and I'll go different than you again on this one, Trey. Got to catch up somehow.
Yeah, somehow. Adam, what do you got?
I'm looking at this one here, and Jake Maier has not really been impressive, even though he's on my fantasy team. I haven't been impressed with him yet. Dedrick Mills, he's got a lot of running to do through some of the Saskatchewan defense. However, the defense of the Riders, if Christmas doesn't play, if Lanier isn't playing, that's kind of scary to me. Just because there's a lot of pieces in that Saskatchewan defensive line that are missing, and that could mean a long day for running the football with Dedrick Mills. I'm going to take the Riders right now, but I'll be honest, I might be changing this pick here at the last second like I did last week with Winnipeg and Saskatchewan. But I'll take the over on this one. Saskatchewan scored a lot of points so far this season. I think Calgary has the potential to score some points this game. And like I say, I think that probably if the Riders get 30, all Calgary needs to do is get 15. So I'm going to go with the Riders and the over, but don't be surprised if I all of a sudden pull the pin on that Rider victory.
Mikey, what do you got, buddy?
Well, I'll preface it by saying this, and this has nothing to do with my pit. I better stay in the dread races as some of my family and my friends. However, the truth is I have family and friends on both sides of this, so it's impossible to be in the dead races of everybody. That being said, I'm going to take the over 45.5, and I'm going to take the Riders to cover. I'm going to make a bonus pick here and say the Riders win by double digits.
I don't got odds on that, so I can't add that to your total, but that's we'll put that in there. Double-digit win. There we go. We'll put the receipts. So we'll pin it up in the Discord or something. Yeah.
Wow, we all took the Riders as the underdogs in this game. I honestly could not see that coming preseason.
I'm really surprised they're the underdogs. Maybe it's just the road thing because you do give the home team 3 traditionally. So on a neutral site, they're saying this is a half-point game. So I do see that. Maybe that's the reasoning, but I mean, to be fair, Calgary's not exactly getting 18,000 is kind of what they're getting. It's not going to be, I don't know. You know what I mean? Riders practice against that sometimes, right, Adam? So
and Riders travel to McMahon lots.
Right.
I mean, that game could be very Christmassy.
Yep.
Not DeMarcus Christmas, just Christmassy.
Yeah. I was just going to say it already kind of is. All right, final game of the week here. We've got the Toronto Argonauts visiting the Edmonton Elks, who are looking to win a home game in front of a guaranteed crowd. The game takes place Sunday night, I believe, at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Let's go to you first here, Mike, to tell us all about this matchup from the Toronto side.
Well. This one might be a little generous for the line at 6.5. But again, it looks so lopsided on paper. If you believe what 1 game and 2 games for both these teams is. Chad Kelly, I liked a lot of what you did to start the game. Not necessarily finish the game. The positive is you didn't throw the game away in the second half when things weren't going well. I think you found a receiver that that could be a game breaker outside of Marquise Ambles, Daniels in that group, and Kotze. I like that a lot. Toronto, I think, has the number one defense at this point in time, despite only playing one game. Boy, oh boy, those guys made life miserable. I thought Ryan was joking when he said that Argos could potentially have this division locked up by Labor Day. Well, count me as one of those that is starting to feel that as well. Yeah, I looked at the two best teams on paper. Right now, that is the Winnipeg Blue Bombers / BC Lions, probably heads up to advantage to Winnipeg just based on points scored and all that, but to make an argument for points against. But Toronto is so far head and shoulders the best team in the East. And I think it's going to be very interesting what's going to happen going forward, because they're so good around them, guys, but I don't believe Chad Kelly has to play any different than just be himself. And to take a page out of the Matt Nichols playbook, manage the game. Don't turn the ball over. You don't need to throw for 350 yards. Just don't turn the ball over. Let that nasty running game take it over if you're not feeling it on a day. That defense, a couple 2-and-outs. My goodness, Argos might have this runaway ship, so to say, by Labor Day. And they might be rowing away from me in their Eastern Division.
Yeah, unfortunately, I got to talk about the team that probably ain't rowing away from nobody right at the moment. The Edmonton Elks look like a deer in the headlights. No pun intended. 22-0. It was just not even a good game against the BC Lions. I think the highlight of that one was, honestly, I can't figure out one right at the moment. The Edmonton Elks just are not looking good to start at the season, and a lot of fingers have been pointed at Taylor Cornelius. I know Ryan is not going to like this, but he hasn't done a whole lot this season so far. He has not been very mobile. He has been throwing kind of odd balls. How is Dylan Mitchell -4 yards after 2 games? I don't care. That's just stunning. I mean, like, this guy should be probably getting at least 10 to 12 probably throws at or targets a game, and should be probably making 100 yards. This guy is a stud, and he has got -4 yards. I mean, come on, Edmonton, you got to do something here. Yes, Chris Jones has given his quarterback the seal of approval. Yeah, that seal isn't very thick, I'll tell you that much. It can be ripped open pretty quick for Trey Ford or for Jared Daggy, I think, is on this team, or whoever else that Chris Jones can find to throw in there and try to be a quarterback for this team. If it's Kyle Loxley or whoever else he can find. Injuries this week that are interesting. Manny Arsenal, unfortunately, does have an injury this week. So he expect him to be, not sure if he'll be out for a while or just be out for this game. Didn't practice in the first practice anyways this week, as well as Ed Gainey, the veteran defensive back, also didn't practice in practice number 1. So just keep those in mind if you're looking at things as well. They released a kicker today. I cannot remember the name of the guy that got released. Ryan, do you know?
Michael Domagala.
Yeah, I think he was just kind of a general kicker there for backup, or what was he?
Yeah, he was Ticats kicker for a season or 2 there. Came over to be the camp competition, but I think lost his job to, I think Faithful's handling the kicking duties now.
Okay, perfect. So, yeah, they released a kicker, but if Edmonton, I don't know. If I'm the Edmonton Elks and I'm the coach and manager and everything, which Chris Jones is, I would maybe, I don't know. I want your guys' opinion real quick, and then we got to move on to fantasy because we're running a little bit late. But I do want your opinions real quick. If you're Chris Jones, is it time to make a change in quarterback, or do you just let Taylor Cornelius run? It's only been 2 games. Don't get me wrong, but if you're Chris Jones, do you possibly start to pull the leash a bit? Ryan, I guess it's your quarterback in the draft. You go ahead first.
I'm not there yet. I'm getting close. I think it should be close at this point, but I think there are other issues still facing the Elks, like the receivers. A lot of dropped passes. The offensive line has been an issue so far. The defense, to their credit, hasn't done a terrible job this season. We're kind of getting that Chris Jones defense stepping into place there. So if they can get that offense back on track a little bit, I mean, they were shut out last week, but they only gave up 22 points. If you get a little bit going on offense, it's looking a lot less of it's looking a little different there in that game. So I think the Elks still have the ability to be competitive. They just got to get back on the right track and get Cornelius running more, because they were at their best last year when he was.
Trey, any comment?
I don't know. I've been shocked since they gave him that contract, and I'm gonna keep being shocked. I don't think he's there. Like I don't know. I don't know what else you do though. But it's kind of a few teams that I don't think their quarterback's quite there, but I think Edmonton is definitely one. But I don't overly think Trey Ford's the answer either. If you think you're gonna get the Nathan Rourke effect, you're not gonna get that. So I mean, I guess you go with the guy you're paying more right now, but you do at some point, I guess, have to give Trey Ford a chance, unless I don't know. Mike?
Yeah.
It's interesting, and I think Chris Jones kind of boxed himself into a corner when he unequivocally went out and defended his quarterback 10 minutes after the football game last week, which is personally something I wouldn't have done. Based on track record, I think everything should be evaluated every single week. I think 2 games is enough of a sample size given these offensive weapons, but, it's not like they're dropping balls that are wide open. He's not even putting them in the same time zone as some of these receivers. I think the prime example is Dylan Mitchell at -4, and I don't know if you heard me screaming and sighing during that whole thing, because he's on my fantasy team and not producing. Another kind of eye-opening thing for me is Geno Lewis had that one play for 100 and something yards in the opening week, had next to nothing last week. That can't be happening when you have, game breakers such as those 2 on there. At some point, the defense becomes demoralized when your offense just quite simply can't do anything. Like, I looked at it, and credit to Dave Campbell of 630 Ched. He had a little chart on Twitter last night or the night before, and you can kind of look at it for yourself, which was all the Elks drives and their starting field position. It's not like starting field position was an issue when you're starting at the other team's average, I think, was 32-yard line, but there were a lot of 40s and 42s in that list, and you can go check it out for yourself on Twitter. Am I there yet based on what he said? No, but should he have said it? No, he shouldn't have, because I think it should be an open evaluation until somebody wins a game. Now, is he your best option? Probably. But to me, I wouldn't have hitched my wagon to Taylor Cornelius at the end of last year. I would have given him a show-me contract, because now you're going to look even worse if you have to move on from him with that contract. And there were plenty of quarterbacks out there last year. And, I hate to be harsh on Cornelius, but the time is ticking. Edmonton needs to win a game, and they need to win a home game soon. It's just not happening. Is it to happen this week? I don't think so. I think you have Cornelius in there, but at some point you might have to look at a couple of other options, and I'm not even sure their quarterback of the future is even on the roster, to be honest.
Yeah, and if you look at this team here, I mean, you're right, Ryan. The defense has done very well, probably for the Elks as much as they've had to play. I mean, Adam Konar almost leads the leagues in tackles, and Jake Seresna has had a good season so far. But yeah, it's the offense in Edmonton is the biggest issue, and that's, Mike, you were mentioning about 10 minutes into it, Chris Jones had to defend his quarterback. I have got such a huge issue with reporters jumping into a locker room 5 minutes, 6 minutes, or just right after a game. Hey, what do you think of this? And sticking a mic in front of him. Let the guy calm down. Let him think about it for a moment. It bothers me, but hey, that's for another night, for another discussion. You know what? There's still some good options in that offense, and I think there's still some great point picks in Edmonton. Ryan, did you pick any of them for fantasy though this week?
Well, let's start on the Argos side first of all, because I think that's where most people are going to load up for fantasy picks here, and I'm honestly thinking of doing the same. Quarterback Chad Kelly, $12,300 in fantasy. I see Trey edited my notes here in the document a little bit to put number 1 QB. And that's right, well, not quite right. Trevor Harris scored more fantasy points last week than him. But 3 rushing touchdowns is the absolute dream when it comes to fantasy football for a quarterback. And he's probably not going to get that many again, but if he's running the ball, if he's punching it in the end zone for 6 points off those touchdowns, even if he has a modest day of 200 yards passing, that's going to be a successful fantasy total. So Chad Kelly against this Elks defense, I like that. Also, I think for the first time tonight, I'm going to mention a defense, and that is the Argos defense. I mean, Edmonton was shut out last week. BC got 15 points off of them. Defenses, by the way, pick a defense last in fantasy this year, because touchdowns don't count for points. They might not even count your points correctly half the time for your defense. It really doesn't pay that much. But the only defense I honestly like this week is the Argos in this matchup. They have one of the best ones on paper. I think I mentioned last week, AJ Ouellette, I had my eyes on him, but I needed to make sure he was getting the bulk of the carries, and he is. He got the bulk of the workload at running back, while Andrew Harris did unfortunately take some of the goal line work, which muddies it a little bit. But at $9,800, I still like AJ Ouellette if he's the lead back. The Elks also have given up quite a bit to the run so far this season. A lot of people are going to be looking at DeMonte Coxey at wide receiver after his game last week. I'm not sold that he's necessarily going to be the go-to guy every week. And I'm not willing to abandon the value play I called out last week in Cam Phillips. It was disappointing. I think he had 1 catch last week, and it didn't work out. But he's at $2,500 in fantasy, and he should still be a starting receiver in the lineup. So, you know what? It's as cheap as you can get out of a player, and just a couple of catches in there is worth the value. So I'll stick with Cam Phillips here. And on the Edmonton side, people might think I'm crazy for doing so, but you got to take a shot here and there every once in a while, and I will throw Dylan Mitchell in the list of fantasy players to watch. There is far too much talent there for a guy at -4 yards in 2 games. He put up, 707 games last year. This offense is going to get back on track to some extent this season, and Dylan Mitchell is going to be involved in that. I have to believe that there's not going to be that far of a drop-off from last season there. So, players rise up in price real quick in fantasy now. Like Alexander Hollins is $11,000. Sean Baines over $10,000. These are guys that we looked at as maybe number 3, 4, 5 receivers on their teams preseason. So if you get a talent like Dylan Mitchell dropping to $8,000, I don't know if I'm quite there willing to put in my lineup, but I think it is a play that I would be willing to potentially take a shot at if you really want to take a shot and try to go against what most people are picking here. That's what I've got for my 5 fantasy picks from this game. Trey, you going with Chad Kelly here again, or who else from the Argos?
Most certainly, and AJ Ouellette. Those are my 2 big money makers. And yes, I booed Andrew Harris every time he touched the football, because why are you leaving Winnipeg? I don't know, man. And every time he touched it, took fantasy points away from me. So, but all the fans in the crowd got a kick out of that when I was screaming he sucks. So, yeah, those are my 2 guys. I like the defense play. I did kind of consider them, but they aren't in my lineup right now. But that might be a switcheroo. Adam?
I'm going to probably go with the Argos defense for sure. I mean, Jamal Peters, I believe, is going to come in and absolutely run wreck shot on the Edmonton Elks this week. Same thing also with a bunch of the other guys on the Argos. I just think they're going to get a lot of points, although it doesn't really matter because who cares? It's a defense. Nobody watches defense. Everybody loves offense, right? Nah. But you know what? Chad Kelly's on my list just because of his running. The heck's that noise? Anyways, Chad Kelly's on my list. He'll be probably on my list for a very long time until he gets out of my price range. He's pretty cheap right now, so I really like that one. And I also really like AJ Ouellette as well, like you guys just mentioned, for the same reasons.
Keep feeding him the ball. That's all I got to say.
I believe Mike is consulting his inside sources here for his fantasy picks in this one. You're off the phone now, Mike. So what'd they tell you?
Yeah, sorry, someone was trying to phone me there, and I didn't realize I had my phone on in the open. No, I like Chad Kelly in this one. I like the Argos D for Toronto. I also like that receiver. His first name escapes me, and the last name is Klotzy. Follow it up, bud. That's all I can say. For Edmonton, I'm in tough to find somebody that I like in fantasy. How about Kevin Brown? He has been awfully quiet for a guy that could really help his struggling quarterback and his struggling offense out a little bit. Watch for him, and suddenly I'm very reluctant to play Dylan Mitchell at a -4 in 2 games, but sometime he's got a breakout. I'm just not sure if it's going to be this week.
Yeah, and you mentioned Kevin Brown. That was definitely a guy that was close to making my top 5 there. I just thought Dylan Mitchell would be the flashy or risky play to put out there for the Elks side. That I still believe in him. I really do. That's it for fantasy players to watch in this game. So we take a look at our betting picks. We'll throw them up, the odds up on the screen here, and take it away, Trey.
Boys, I just think the Toronto Argonauts are a freight train, and a team like playing against a team that couldn't put up a rouge last week. You know, that's -6.5. Give me that all day. Sorry, Edmonton, you're not winning at home this week, according to me. And 44.5. Again, I'm going to go under because I don't see Toronto putting up more than 30, and I can't see Edmonton putting up more than 10. So, you know, that's kind of my score there. So, yeah, -6.5 Toronto with the under. Mike, let's go with you first this time.
It must be some kind of week because Trey and I agree on a lot. Toronto and under on the point.
I think we've agreed on every game so far, Mike. So, it's a good strategy.
It's a momentous occasion. Mark this down, the 21st of June, the longest day of the year. Trey and I agree on absolutely everything pitch-wise. I'll start making out the plot right now.
We'll see which force wins out here. Will Mike's 0-4 week last week drag Trey down, or will Trey lift Mike up?
Adam, you know what? You had the 4-0 week last week in spreads, man. What do you think?
Well, I'm looking here, and I went and I just checked out the schedule here. July the 13th, Edmonton plays the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I think that's probably the first time that Edmonton could possibly see a win at home. The other one is August the 30th against the Ottawa Red Blacks. I'm sorry, Edmonton fans. But you're going to keep those tickets that you bought from the Rider game that were guaranteed win night for a very long time right now. And you're going to get a real good deal on those tickets because, yeah, Edmonton ain't winning this one against the Argonauts. I would probably bet a very, very small, what's a bigger bug than an ant? Beetle farm? I don't know. Nevertheless, I bet the Beetle Farm on the Toronto Argonauts and give me the under on it because, yeah, both of these teams, I don't think put up a whole lot of points, but the Argos are definitely going to put up more than Edmonton.
Well, I'll make it consistent across the board. I'm taking Toronto and I'm taking the under here as well. I think the Argos are a really good team. And Edmonton, I've been wrong on so many things with them so far this year. I'm not going to trust picking them again right now in this one. Although it's a little bit scary, I guess, to take the under with a 6.5 spread there with it being 44.5. But you know what? The Argos... I mean, the Elks aren't going to put a ton of points on the board, and their defense, to their credit, has actually held both the Riders and the Lions to modest totals there. So, yeah, give me the under on this one.
Sounds good, boys. And, of course, everyone watching, you can check out our Discord. I post everything, our potential payouts, everything like that, and you can see how much we would won. Sorry, I keep reading chats. I'm so dumb. Richard, don't type when I'm talking. Anyway, well, check out our Discord. I got it all locked up in there for any degenerates who want to know how we're doing. And Adam and I are the only two in the positive. So, air high five, buddy. It's okay, Rich. I'm just kidding.
In terms of the question, have we picked all the same winners this week? We did, except Adam picked the Ticats to beat the Alouettes is the only difference there. So either good week, average week, or terrible week for all of us.
And you picked a couple different. I think me, Mike, and Adam are the same on everything, and then you've picked a couple different unders and overs, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the only difference. But yeah, I'll have that all up in the Discord. That's what I'm kind of working on too, Rich, here when everyone else is talking, is getting all those potentials paid out here. So a lot of math. I'm not a math guy.
Well, I think that is it for our week 3 game previews here. I guess quick recap and preview of fantasy. Our fantasy total. So in our CFC Fantasy League, I did have the highest score of week number 2 with 94.2 points. Sean White, my leading scorer, with 19 points from his 5 or 6 field goals in that game. I'm getting a lot of points from my last picks in the draft. It's great. I love it. Trey, you had finished with the second highest score of the week at 78.9. Chad Kelly, Dalton Schoen made up pretty much all of that total combined. Adam, you finished at 70.6 on the week. You mentioned you had a down week, but Jake Mayer actually your highest scoring player of the week, and that 15 from that BC defense with the shutout contributed for you. Mike, a down week after a strong start to the season, 63.4. Those Elks receivers really hurting you bad here. But Drew Wolotarski and Zach Collaros, kudos to you on good games there from those guys. We'll see what week 3 brings there.
Hey, could I quickly mention why I screwed up, or why I think it was a down week for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was a bunch of moves made by me just after we went off the air last Wednesday. First things first, I added Sam Emilus to my roster. Great move, right? Except when the last second you go and just trade him off for Alexander Hollins, who you also added to the roster for Duke Williams. Yeah, it was a lot of second guessing on my part. And if you're going into this fantasy stuff, don't second guess yourself. Just take the pick you made at first, because it didn't go well for me.
Richard asks a good question in the chat. What stat source are you using for these scores? Basically making them up, because the CFL does that too. No, I'm using the air quotes official CFL stat PDFs, because it's 2005 and we're downloading PDFs to find out the stats. I don't know if those are even correct. That's what I'm going with. They seem more accurate than the live game tracker ones. So that's what we've been calculating here for these. Couple of moves already made this week as well. Trey claimed Matt Schultz. The Terrell Pogrom era on Team Trey is over. Trey, you didn't want to stick it out for the breakout?
No, and I honestly thought it was going to be more of a bidding war for Schultz too, so I shouldn't have even put a dollar amount on him, but I didn't know that.
And Mike claiming DeMonte Coxey. You've talked him up here a little bit already tonight for a couple of bucks and dropping Mitchell Picton, who was at one of Adam's fantasy players to watch. So I give it like 24 hours before he's on Team Adam, and then taken out of the lineup and then puts up 3 touchdowns. In the CFL Podcast Fantasy League that Trey, Adam, and myself are playing, it is a league for charity. Money goes to charity, whoever wins. I think we all went. I think we went 3-0 last week, guys. Adam, you won your matchup over the Argos Fancast. I beat the X's and Argos show, and Trey, you put up the highest score of the week at 132.8 points. So CFC crew running it across the board in that league. Kudos, Trey, for the highest score of the week. This week in fantasy matchups in that league, Adam, you're facing superfan Mike from the Turf District, last year's champion there. Trey, you are facing Joe from Rouge, White, and Blue, the previous champion before that. And I'm facing Zach Schnitzer from Bonfire Sports, who is known to put up some big weeks there as well. So should be some great matchups. Make sure you check out all those shows and all the other great shows from around the Canadian Football Podcast Network. Finally, in the CFC Discord League, Adam, you, after the results reversed, you won your matchup this past week to improve to 1-1 there. Trey, you beat Mike. Mike, you fell to Trey in that matchup there. And I did win my matchup until the stats got corrected, and I lost by 0.4 to Discord member Extreme 88. So... that doesn't include the latest correction of the stats, which might actually trend in the other direction. I honestly don't know what to do with these leagues anymore. This is chaos. We're all just here to have fun, right?
Just call it a tie and go home happy.
Yeah, we're just here to have fun. That's what this is all about. We are all having fun, right? Yeah.
Welcome to the CFL, where the calls are made up and the stats don't matter.
Exactly. Mike, you face FM Fan 2014 this week. He's been in our YouTube chat a little bit here tonight. Also, I think put up a pretty good total last week. Let's see, Trey, you're facing Josh M from the Discord group, and Adam, you're going down this week, buddy.
Oh, you can think so, but I can't remember, but I think I'm the only one that's 2-0 in the Podcast Fantasy League. Just saying.
Yeah, I should have included a separate list of fantasy suggestions just for Adam. I hear Bo Levi Mitchell is dressing on Friday night and could be an excellent fantasy pick for you.
Perfect. I might take Bo, and also I'm taking that legendary Andrew Harris. I think he might have something.
All right, so well, that's our fantasy matchups, fantasy results there this week. So best of luck to everybody in our Discord and Podcast Network leagues, anybody tuning in from those leagues there. Let's wrap things up here tonight and find out where you can find us on social media, which is, there we go. I did it. You can find the podcast on Twitter at CF Countdown Pod, on Facebook as well, facebook.com/CF Countdown Pod. There, again, check out the link in the description to come chat with us in our CFC Discord. We're having a lot of fun with that this season. You can find me on Twitter at CooperTrooper42. Starting to tweet a little bit more often, getting a little bit feisty with some of my CFL takes. So, you know what? Put Matt Schultz in the Hall of Fame. That's where I'm at right now. Let's go to you first, Mike. Where can people find you and what you got going on?
Well, first off, I think we should start a new weekly segment. If your Twitter feed has been any indication on what's bugging Ryan.
Everything.
Pretty much. On a more serious note, you can find me on Twitter at Mike Darrow. You can find my work Facebook.com/GameTimeTV, GameTimeTV.ca. Just a sporting note for everybody on the way out. Nothing to do with this podcast. It's a baseball-related note. The Cincinnati Reds won their 11th game in a row today. They are now leading the NL Central. Their longest winning streak at 11 games since 1957. So that is my stat of the night for you, non-football related.
I remember that year as if it was yesterday. All right, let's go over to you next, Trey. Where can we find everything you've got going on?
Yeah, just a bunch of horse racing stuff at Trey Harness Link. Will always be there doing that. I don't have any horse racing stats here for you. I don't know. A lot of Canadian records got broken on the weekend, which is very interesting. The biggest track I've ever been to. So, hey, here's this. I've mentioned it in the Discord, but anyone else watching, I really highly suggest watching. It's called Ontario Racing Unfiltered. It's on It's on Crave, and it's also on TSN's YouTube for free. It's a 15-minute video, and they're going to do a series on racing, and the first one was on harness racing. And I think the next harness racing episode, they were shooting it while I was there at the track. So episode 3 or 4, make sure you look out to see me on TSN.
Right on. Yes, make sure you check that out. And Adam, you sent me a picture before and said put this up on the slide, and I don't know what it is because I didn't really look at it. So hopefully this is fine to show. But what are we looking at here, buddy?
Well, that is a crop of, well, anybody want to guess? No. No.
Corn.
No. That's not corn. That's not even close to corn.
But this is the Adam. I thought.
Come on, guys, get out in the field more often. That's canola. Yeah, that's our crop of canola. I just took a picture of it today because I know you guys all love seeing the crop pictures once in a while over on our Discord page. So make sure you join us over there and check it out. I don't post very much lately on Twitter with the crop photos or anything, but yeah, definitely if you want to check out our Discord page, I'll try to post more of the videos and little things going on for the farm. Maybe I'll make a separate little channel so you guys can enjoy all this kind of stuff and admire a good crop of corn. I mean, canola.
Well, I don't know. I thought these were the cornfields on Stewart Farms where we were going to, house the 11th and 12th CFL franchises. So didn't we talk about, big battle in the cornfields?
Yeah, no, it'd be tough because I don't think there's a cornfield within 100 miles of this place. But yeah, we could do the wheat fields. I mean, could mow out a wheat field or something and make a track around it so Trey can run horses or something. But yeah, no, like I said, we'll try to get some more pictures up there for you guys of things like this over on our Discord page. And make sure you check that out. And there might be also some good CFL information over there.
And hey, if you start growing the corn now, the field might be ready by the time the Atlantic Schooners come, and then we'll be ready for franchise 11 and 12.
Just like Ryan's Twitter page, he's trying to choose violence in this section. So I don't know why he's trying to convince me to grow corn.
I don't know.
Does your aunts need corn for your ant farm?
No. Maybe I'm just bitter about the slow start to the year for Taylor Cornelius. I don't know. Anyways, we'll be back again next week. Same time, same place. Week 4 CFL preview where we'll do all the fun things we just did tonight. So look forward to that. I mentioned where you can find us on social media and on the Discord already. So I think the final thing to mention here is whatever podcast platform you're listening on, we appreciate if you do all the fun things such as like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, share the show with your friends. Help us grow the show. We very much always appreciate that. On behalf of our panel here this evening, Mike, Trey, and Adam, I'm Ryan saying thank you for listening. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.